Welcome to today's live stream. My name is Arlene Pelicane. I am the spokesperson for National Marriage Week. You're here because you want to make your marriage stronger, and we have assembled an amazing panel of experts who are specialists in this area and who are ready to give of their time to help you. So we are so glad you're here. If you happen to be sitting next to your spouse, grab their hand. We are in for a treat. Every February 7th to 14th, we celebrate National Marriage Week. This is a campaign, a movement of people who want to declare to the world that marriage is good. It's good for us, it's good for society, and it is good for nations. So this year's theme is Together with Purpose. And that's why we're here, because we believe the purpose of marriage is worth fighting for, worth learning about, and getting better at. So let's get started.
Hello, viewers. I am delighted you've joined our National Marriage Week panel discussion tonight. I'm Amy Morgan, your moderator this evening. I'm so happy to introduce you to our panel guests. Erin and Greg Smalley are passionate about marriage. Erin maintains a counseling practice where she specializes in working with married couples, and Greg is the Vice President of Marriage Ministry at Focus on the Family. Together, Greg and Erin co-host the Focus on the Family Strengthening Marriage podcast, as well as the crazy little thing called Marriage Podcast, and they have been married for 33 years. Rob Rienow and his wife, Amy, are the founders of Visionary Family Ministries. Their mission is to help families around the world follow Jesus. Rob serves as an international conference speaker, has a podcast, and is the author of several books, including Visionary Parenting, Visionary Marriage, and Healing Family Relationships. Julia Dezelski is Associate Director for Marriage and Family Life at the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops. Julia has spoken nationally and internationally on marriage and family life. She was invited to speak at the World Meeting of Families in 2018, and in December 2023, she was appointed as a consultant to the Dicastery for Laity, Family, and Life at the Vatican. Julia enjoys raising 4 lively little girls under the age of 7 with her husband, Francis, in the Washington, D.C. metro area. Erin and Greg, Julia, Rob, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Well, tonight we're talking about creating traditions and making memories. Traditions are a concrete way to live out and celebrate who and what matter to you. They remind you of what you stand for and the life you are building together as a couple. Traditions create memories, which are essential to building deep connections, passing down shared beliefs and values, and linking generations in a way that nurtures belonging. But to build a foundation, you have to start at the beginning. I'm going to ask each of you to share a bit about how you and your spouse met. There's value in knowing and sharing your origin story. It reaffirms your love and commitment each time you tell it, and offers hope to the people who hear it, including your own children. Acknowledging how, where, and what we were doing when we met our future spouse can create lasting traditions with far-reaching impact. Julia, can you share us how you met your husband, Francis?
Sure. Thank you, Amy. I absolutely love to tell this story because I never expected it to happen this way. So we were a bit older when we started dating. Francis came from a corporate background, and I had spent many years in the church, working in Europe primarily. And so I had just returned to the United States, and it was a new venture for me, and we didn't expect to, start dating. And we were a lot younger, and rather older than most of our peers, right? And so we were not well suited to the typical dating scene, I would say. And so neither of us knew where to start. So we turned to a Catholic dating platform. And that platform is called Catholic Match. It still exists. And I must have pinged like a dozen guys, hoping for some kind of message, some kind of response, right? Like we all hope when we send out that initial hello. The first and last message I received was from now my husband, Francis. So I, it just happened to be the only guy who responded. And that's not the reason I married him, but it was a good start. It was a good start. After a brief exchange, we realized that we lived only 2 blocks away from one another in the same neighborhood, in the same city. And so shortly afterward, we were reintroduced in person by mutual friends. And that was an awkward moment. But the rest is history. Our first apartment as a married couple was in the same neighborhood. and we still attend the church in the same neighborhood where we were married. And so it's a weekly reminder to us and to our children of our marriage covenant. And now we are rounding out 10 years of marriage, and I committed to making this year the year that I developed those photos from our wedding, because they're so beautiful and they need to go on our wall. So that is a high priority this year. So that's our story.
I love that. I love that you still go to church in the same church you were married in. That's so sweet. Well, Rob, your and Amy's origin story has evolved into a celebration, actually several celebrations. Can you explain?
Yeah, it was August 28th, 1993, and our eyes met across a crowded room at the Billy Graham Center at Wheaton College. We were both starting graduate school. She went to U of I undergrad. I went to Wheaton undergrad. And it was orientation day, and I see her across the room, and we have this moment of attraction, just a few seconds spark. And then I do what any red-blooded American man would do in that situation, which is run. I did not go up to her. I did not introduce myself. I did not say, hey, can I get you a cup of coffee? Because, a pretty girl like that, she's going to say no. And I don't need that kind of rejection in my life. So finally, things over the course of the next couple months, it really was like junior high all over again. A friend came to me and said, Rob, I think Amy likes you. And I'm like, really? You think she likes me? And she told me that if you ask her out, she'll say yes. So once all fear of failure was removed and I had a guaranteed yes, I asked her out. We had our first date. And then 5 months after our first date, we got engaged. And 5 months after engagement, we got married. So 10 months from first date to wedding day. We've now been married 31 years. We've been blessed with 7 children. But back to August 28th, 1993, the reason why I know it's August 28th is because, like you said, we do have a little bit of a celebration or remembrance. We call it First Eyes Day, the day we first saw each other. So that's one of our little traditions that's on the calendar. And we even, a few years ago, because we live in the same town here where we met, and so we're like, we should take the kids over to the exact spots. We should reenact the moment where I was standing and where she was standing. And so we have this picture. And of course, our teenage sons, when we did this, I can't even tell you how mortified they were. They're off to the side of the picture with their heads down. But it's been a fun thing for us to celebrate.
Oh, I love that. Oh, Greg and Erin, you also met in college. Erin, what do you first remember about Greg?
Well, I remember I had just transferred into Grand Canyon University, and I remember this guy I had heard about, that he was Gary Smalley's son. I was like, oh, interesting. So I ended up sitting in the back of an Old Testament theology class, early morning class, and there was this guy in front of me. I was like, oh, that's that guy. And his head was down on the desk.
I was praying.
He liked to say he was praying. He was drooling on the desk. So I don't know that the drool actually drew me towards him, but I decided to help him. So I reached forward, I kind of grabbed him, I shook him, and I told him he needed to wake up.
Yeah. Well, let me clarify her idea of helping a total stranger. I didn't know who she was. I was sound asleep. The next thing I know, there's some girl violently shaking me awake.
I didn't want him to miss anything.
Yeah. And so
Old Testament theology.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Leviticus. It's very important.
Yes.
And so I kind of wiped the drool off and looked at her like, yeah, like what? And so she goes, quick, Greg, you got to stand up. And I'm like, why? And she goes, the professor, he just called on you. And I'm going, what? She goes, he just called on you to pray. And so I'm asking, are you being serious? She's like, oh, yeah. And why would a stranger not be serious? Why would they make this up? So I trusted her then. And I stood up and I started to pray. Everybody starts to laugh. I quickly realized that I'd been punked. And I just remember sitting there mortified as everybody's laughing at me, just staring at her, thinking, man, the fact that she could be that cruel to another human, me, that I remember thinking, now that's the girl I want to marry someday. So it took me a few years to convince her, but eventually we went out and dated and got married, and not like a cool date like August 28th or anything, but
Here we
she
are.
she won me over by
Yes.
humiliating me. Let's just put it that way.
And here we are 34 years later.
Yeah.
Oh. Well, and then too, Erin, you had mentioned that you were friends with his sister.
Yes.
Then you started working together in the family ministry, and that's something that has become part of your tradition.
Yes. I was friends with his sister because we both dated one of Greg's roommates. So we had that in common, and eventually I got the best roommate. But we both worked together in his dad's ministries, and so we shipped books together and thoroughly enjoyed it and laughed a lot, had a lot of fun, just like we did when we first met.
And here we are, almost 34 years later.
Oh, well, and that's something that you do with your kids now too. And Rob, you do that as well. You include your children in your ministry. Can you share some of the ways that they participate?
Sure. Well, again, we've got 7 kids, 4 boys and 3 girls, ages 28 down to 12. Our top 3 are married and off the payroll, and we're in this season of blessing with grandbabies now. But with Visionary Family Ministries, our heart has always been to invite our children into serving and participating. You know, it's really interesting. I was a pastor for 18 years before doing Visionary Family, and I think in the modern ministry world, there's a real sensitivity to not, I don't know, but you don't want to put expectations on your kids that they have to be some, super Christian or super leader or involved in your ministry somehow. So I actually think early in our parenting, we sort of went to the other end of the spectrum. Look, no pressure, not even really any invitation. But then as the years went by, we began to see, well, there were stories that would happen. We would go to a family camp, and I'd have the opportunity to preach, to speak during the week, but our kids were there building relationships and maybe connecting with another camper's family who was new or something. And at the end of the week, we'd get this feedback. They'd say, Rob, it was really great. Your messages were good and all, but what really made a difference was your son being kind to our son. I'm like, oh, thank you. I appreciate that. But that was just happening over and over again. So we've become a little more, no pressure, but kind of warmly inviting and just wanting to communicate to them that there is so much happiness when you serve the Lord. There's so much happiness when you use your gifts for him, especially as a family. So one of the things our ministry does is our Thanksgiving ball. Every Thanksgiving season, this last year we had 400. It's a multi-generational event, little tots all the way through grandparents, with a wonderful dinner and worship and Bible teaching, and then all the family dancing. And our kids, I don't have a musical bone in my body, but Amy does, and she brings that genetic strength to the team. So they're on the worship team and the MC and the tech team. And it's great to, really, really great to serve together.
Oh, I love that. I love that you used the word warm, because Julia, you agreed that faith must be a source of warmth in your home and be inviting and not oppressive.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yes. I've learned that over and over again. And unfortunately, I have to say, my husband came from a family dynamic in which the faith was not the warmth of his home. And it did end up turning a lot of his siblings away from the practice of the faith. So I really love that, Rob. That is such a beautiful, beautiful testimony of how, you weren't pressuring your kids. You probably were not, I'm sure there was maybe a little pressure to attend Sunday school and Bible, and Sunday worship. But when you make it too much of a forceful gesture, then, unfortunately, sometimes the reaction can be negative and kids back away, and they just don't want that kind of pressure. So I love that. And so my husband and I are really trying to make the faith a source of warmth in our home so that they come to love it and recognize that this is something to rejoice about and it's something to love. And we do this as a family because it does unite us and bring us closer together.
Oh, I love that. Well, another value you're teaching your children, Julia, is the tradition of adoption. Can you share your experience and how that has impacted your marriage and family?
Absolutely. Yes. So after the blessing of 3 biological daughters, I experienced the loss of a baby through miscarriage, and then secondary infertility, which follows typically biological children when you enter this phase of infertility for no foreseen reason. And it was a source of great suffering to us, I think, especially to me, being the mother and the one who bears life. And we had desired a rather large family, but the reality is life is short and, time is precious. And there's only so much time that you are given to grow that family. So since we wanted to welcome more children into our home and we had prayed about it, we explored the option of fostering to adopt. And I had always had this on my heart. So it was something that I had really wanted to do if the opportunity, allowed it. And so within just a few months of being licensed within our local county as foster parents, we received a call that there was a baby girl waiting in the local hospital. She had been surrendered by her birth mom, and she was very premature, just beautiful. But she spent the first 4 months of her life in the neonatal intensive care unit because she just needed that extra care and support. And so that's how we got to know her for 4 months in the NICU. And then we welcomed her straight into our home after those 4 months. And God willing, within a few months, we will be able to adopt her. Now, I have to say, quite honestly, at first the experience was a little difficult because I was all there. I was all for it. My husband, a little bit less so. He was a little more reticent, a little more hesitant about taking on, this kind of responsibility. And so it did strain our marriage at the beginning. And we found that we really needed to be on the same page. We really needed to do this together. It wasn't something that one of us could just, decide for the both of us. So that experience challenged us to talk through our perspectives to the point that we can make the decision together, because we realized through that experience that every decision has to be done together, especially a life-changing one like this. So even though it was a source of strain on our marriage at the beginning, I can say that now it's a source of strength for us. And it really, it helped improve our marriage greatly.
Well, I love that. As someone who's adopted myself, it is such a gift. And Greg and Erin, you also adopted a child who's significantly younger than your other children, and especially your daughters. How has that affected their life choices?
Well, it was interesting because early on, of course, we went through hard as well. We had 3 kids and brought number 4 home from China. And our daughter, who's now 18, Annie, adopted from China, has had 19 surgeries. And so as a family, often we were sitting outside of the operating room together, waiting for her to recover and come out and to comfort her. And so our 2 oldest daughters, the oldest one is a nurse anesthetist. And so she's in the OR, and she says that she utilizes what we went through as a family to comfort patients going under anesthesia, saying, I'm going to take great care of you. I'm going to treat you like my family. And then our second daughter is actually an operating room nurse at the Children's Hospital here in Denver. And she will tell people, I know what it's like to push your child back, your loved one back to the OR and to let them go. So I am going to go with them and take great care of them. So it really is precious how they both have picked up on that and are continuing to just take care of people in the same way that we cared for our sweet Annie.
Yeah, what I love is just the story. Erin was adopted, Amy as well, and it always wanted to do this for kind of pay it forward for another little girl. So we had started praying for an Annie, and for years, and we were with a good friend of ours who had recently gone to China, and he was just telling us about being at an orphanage, and so we got introduced to this orphanage director through an email, and this orphanage director was asking our friend, just about, and our friend asked him, hey, how's that little girl that I held when I was there? Oh. And the orphanage director's response was, well, Annie is doing great. And so we had no idea that the name Annie itself would be how we were connected. And I think that has become such a powerful part of the tradition and the story that God used just us naming and praying by name a little girl named Annie to actually connect us with our daughter. And it just
wow, that is just so amazing. Yeah. That is absolutely amazing. Oh, what a great testimony. Thank you. I didn't know that part. That's really powerful. Well, Rob, sometimes before we can start our own traditions, we need to change some things from our families of origin. Can you get us started with what you realized?
Yeah, well, I didn't come from, this legacy of faith or this really strong Christian family. When my parents got married, neither one of them were Christians. My mother was my father's fourth wife. My father was my mother's second husband. They got married. I was born. And my mom came to Christ when I was a baby, when I was 3 months old. And so she was the first Christian, in our whole family tree. So God is having to do like this whole like generational reconstruction project. And then so there were so many foundation pieces that were not in place for me and Amy when we got married. We were both believers, but I had no clue what the purpose of a Christian family was, what the purpose of being a Christian husband or father was. And I was a youth pastor the first 10 years of our marriage. And as a youth pastor, the number one passion of my life is passing my faith to other people's children. So I'm going to pray with other people's children, read the Bible with other people's children. I'm going to take other people's children on retreats and mission trips. I'm going to do lock-ins with junior hires. They were horrible. But we're doing all this stuff because we love young people. And it was a great season of youth ministry. But the problem was I was praying with other people's kids, not praying with my kids. I'm reading the Bible with other people's kids, not reading the Bible with my kids. I'm leading like discipleship groups with other families and doing nothing in my own home, not even praying with my wife other than prayer before meals. And the scripture actually that transformed everything for us, this was 2004, was Deuteronomy chapter 6. Now, I grew up in church with a Christian mom. Okay, I had an atheist dad, but grew up in a church with a Christian mom. And my parents, by the way, got divorced when I was 15. Dad had extra relationships outside the marriage, and that brought everything crashing down. So we just came from a lot of brokenness. But Deuteronomy 6, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength. These commands I give to you today are to be upon your hearts. And then God speaks to the family. He speaks to parents. He speaks to grandparents. He says, teach them diligently to your children. Like, hey, if you want to love me, mission number one, help the kids love me too. And then there's this incredibly practical, specific instruction in the very next verse. It says, teach them diligently to your children. And then it says, talk about them, the word of God, the things of God. Talk about the word of God when you sit at home. And that connection to love God, which Jesus says is the first and the greatest commandment, to love God with all my heart. Okay, Lord, I want to love you. Where do I start? Open my book at home with your family. Talk about me at home with your family. And that was something for 10 years we never did. And we started 30 years ago to have just a little bit of family prayer, a little bit of family Bible reading as close to daily as we possibly could. And that sent our family and our ministry down this whole new trajectory.
Well, I know one of the things that you've mentioned is you have agency to make a different future, that what you came from is not where you have to end up.
Yeah. And, back to this divorce pattern in my family. Again, my father divorced 4 times. My mother divorced twice. So my older brother and I were the first 2 Christian men in our family tree. And my mom led us in I guess I'd call it a spiritual warfare prayer, which is called representative repentance. It's really fascinating biblical principle. You see it with Jeremiah and some of the other prophets, but Jeremiah goes to the Lord and he says, we, on behalf of the people of Israel, we confess our idolatry. And Jeremiah was not an idol worshiper, but he was standing as a representative for the people. We are idolaters, Lord, and we ask for your forgiveness. So my mom led my brother and I, when we were young men, in this prayer of representative repentance. We are here as the first 2 Christian men in this family tree to confess our generations of divorce, our generations of unbiblical divorce. And we want to ask, like, if you had a picture of your family tree, that you would put the cross of Christ on Rob and put the cross of Christ on Mark, and that you'd break this generational curse of divorce, that you'd give us lifelong Christian marriages, and then our kids would have lifelong Christian marriages, and our grandkids would have lifelong Christian marriages, that there'd be this new kind of gospel legacy that would begin with us.
Oh, I love that. It's like Gandalf and the Balrog, you shall not pass, that we're going to create a new, and I love that one. That's definitely an image that has always resonated with me, of just taking a stand to go forward. Julia, can you explain some ways to have a flourishing marriage instead of a shipwrecked one?
Mhm. Yes, Francis and I, we've come to realize that our marriage can really flourish when there's a mutual understanding and acceptance of each other, of who we are, but also from whom we are. So this kind of dovetails with what Rob was just saying. And by that, I mean really accepting the good, the bad, and the ugly of our family of origin and all that it entails, right? So Francis and I have really learned to acknowledge how our family differences and defects have shaped us, right? And we bring that into our marriage. There is a certain amount of baggage that each of us carries into it. But we strive to learn, right, from those defects and those differences, and even thrive from them, right, by really taking those lessons to heart, learning from maybe, what my parents did wasn't so, the perfect way to do it. We strive to do everything as perfectly as possible. We never do, but we're still striving for it, right? And so we try not to let the shortcomings of those who have come before us limit the love that we have for each other and for our children. Really, the sky's the limit, right? We really want the best for them. And so sometimes that does mean putting up boundaries, even from the very people we love around our children, from extended family members who might have some toxic, behaviors. And so, and that's really because, like Rob said, we don't want to repeat any generational dysfunction. And I really like the prayer around that repentance, that relieving oneself, liberating oneself of all of that generational dysfunction. And all things considered, we come from rather stable families. Both sets of parents are still happily married, but nevertheless, no family is perfect and mistakes are made along the way. So the bottom line is that we want our marriage to thrive, not just survive. And we do believe that generational curses of shipwrecked marriages or sunken families, they can be redeemed by God's grace, and they can be redeemed for generations to come. And that's what we are striving for our own family.
Oh, I love that. Well, Greg, despite your being raised in a ministry household, a very public ministry household, you and Erin also had to work through a few things when you got married.
Yeah, we did, and I love the theme from Rob and Julia already, because when I think about just kind of our journey, that we sometimes on our podcast will ask people, if you could go back to that younger you standing at the altar, what advice would you give kind of your younger self? And I would love to be able to go back and put my arm around 23-year-old Greg and just say, you're going to do all right, but you've got some baggage that you're bringing into this marriage, and it's going to create some real scars on it for Erin, for you, for your marriage. And I would tell younger me, you guys are going to survive that. You're going to thrive through that. God's going to use all that to teach you. So it's going to be all right. But man, go get help. Deal with the junk, deal with the baggage. I didn't understand that at that time. And I so wish that I could have done that. We've done so much of that work now. And yet I wish I would have had that vision, that sanctification, that, man, just you got stuff and it's okay. It takes two healthy, full, whole individuals to create that marriage that God really wants for us. So you've got to do that work at some point. I wish I would have done it a little bit sooner.
Well, and you had a phrase that really resonated with me. It was a conflict resolution. It was just a little tweak. Could you just throw that out there and explain it for a sec?
Mm-hmm. Whenever we have conflict, we of course acknowledge that we have this cycle that takes off, and really figuring out, how do we do conflict well? How do we separate, taking a timeout, but then coming back and reconnecting? So we use this phrase, I need a repair. Yeah. And so whoever is able to come back first, whoever calls a timeout is actually who does that, and just saying, I need a repair. And so it phrases it in a way that I need a repair is that we're going to reconnect, that we're working towards reconnection, and just that connection that we so enjoy with each other, because in missed conflict, it can be severed. And so I need a repair. Just a simple little phrase.
Because we're taught to usually we're taught to resolve, conflict resolution. I think that was our goal. We've got to find the solution, fix it, and it just, most of what we argue about, there's not a solution there. So this idea of, hey, we need a repair, I need a repair, it's made such a big difference, because now I know what that means. I know that it's just come alongside of Erin and caring about how she felt or what her experience was.
And vice versa.
Yeah. I mean, I mainly do that, but
he shares his deepest feelings.
Yeah, right. They're deep. I'm a deep well.
I love that though. That really resonated with me, because those are easier words to say,
right?
Especially after a conflict. They're not as threatening.
Yeah, often couples don't come back and reconnect after conflict, and so I need a repair is just the simple way, just to go, I want to reconnect with you.
Yeah. And easier to say.
Yeah.
Well, Rob, switching gears, how have the traditions you started with Amy trickled down to your children? You talk about them seeing, again, we're talking about warmth in their parents' marriage. Can you explain?
Yeah, let me just go back real quick to something Greg said. He just talked about the importance of reaching out for help. And I was preaching in our home church, and I mentioned in kind of an offhanded way that Amy and I had gone to see our marriage counselor that last week. And I didn't really develop it, but I mentioned it. And after the service, someone came up who was very concerned that the pastor was getting marriage counseling. And I said, well, sometimes Amy and we just get stuck. We're trying to work something out, but it's not working, and we're just spinning our wheels. So we go to get help, to have someone, help us get unstuck. I said, what do you do when you and your wife get stuck? He's like, oh, we just stay stuck. I'm like, all right, well, good for you. Good luck with that. We are going to reach out for help if that's okay with you, to try to help some, have some folks help us get unstuck. Okay. So, sort of the joy of seeing, again, especially for me personally, not seeing a Christian marriage, not see my father treat my mother well, to now see some seeds planted and some fruit growing in the next generation. I'll give you two examples, both with my son-in-law, Bond. Okay, my daughter Lissy is married to Bond. They have 3 children. So one from Christmas, and then just a general one. My absolute favorite part of this last Christmas. Well, first of all, we had everybody home, every kid, every spouse, every grandkid, Christmas morning. I mean, this does not happen very often. So it was really epic. Oh. So then it was Christmas afternoon. And I was thinking, it's just about time that I should call everybody together for, it's kind of our family worship time, our Advent time and Bible reading time. And just as I was starting to think, well, now might be the right time, my son-in-law says, hey, everybody, I think it's a great time for our Advent reading. Let's all get together. And he pulls everybody together and opens up the Advent book. And he's got his kids and his nephew sitting there, and my kids gathered around. And my son-in-law, Bond, leads the Christmas family worship time. And I'm pinching myself with, this is the best Christmas ever. I was just so proud of him. And then the other thing that he's picked up on, so I have 2 daughters-in-law and 1 son-in-law. So I'm focusing on my home run son-in-law, Bond. But you all are familiar with the love languages, obviously. And my wife's, one of her love languages is gifts. Okay, and I'm not real good at that, so that creates a problem, because gifts don't really mean much to me. So whatever. So I'd like to claim credit for it. At least I know I didn't get the idea from somewhere else. I'm sure other people have done it, but I'm going to say this is the one thing that I came up with in our marriage that has been a gold mine. Whenever our kids have a birthday, that I give Amy a birthing day present.
So cool.
A small, you gave birth today to this wonderful person gift. So now, sometimes let's maybe little, 20 or 30 bucks. Now I do have an advantage. Like, let's say I want to get her something bigger. I can say, hey, these are your next 3 birthing days all rolled together. So it's kind of a complicated spreadsheet, but I've got it all worked out. But for my wife, who absolutely loves gifts, this has become something that has been super special to her. And now my wonderful son-in-law, Bond, he now has 3 more dates on the calendar that he gives my daughter her birthing day gift. And I just love it.
I love that. That is so special. I mean, I think about that. I mean, you do remember the days that you get. I mean, my older son was born during the Gerald tornado, and I'll never forget that. Julia, you wanted to impress on our viewers the importance of a strong marriage.
Yeah, I just have to say, Rob, I love that. I'm going to bring that back to my husband because I think it's very important.
It always works very well if the wife brings the idea to the husband for that.
I love it. I'll let him know. Yes. But yeah, the importance of a strong marriage, it kind of reminds me of the phrase, and you probably have heard this expression, right? If mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. I think it was like framed in one of the bathrooms in my childhood home as mom's way of kind of subtly reminding everybody, you better make me happy because then everything else goes smoothly, right? And I've kind of come to realize that might be true, but it's even truer of couples, right? Because if your marriage is not happy, your family won't be. Because a happy marriage is the foundation of a happy family. It just works like mathematically. And it does make sense. As husband and wife, you've given life to your children, and from you comes their identity, their roots, their genealogy, their genetic makeup, their quirks, their good looks, or maybe bad looks, but everything, right? And so, and I think it's just so important to safeguard that and to remind ourselves that they look to you for that identity. So as a mother of young children, I have to continually remind myself that despite how busy my day will get, the most precious moments of those days will be when I'm with my children, one-on-one, or with my husband, of course, but one-on-one with them, making intentional time for them. So sometimes that means one-on-one dating, mother-daughter dates, father-daughter dates. We only have girls in our household, so 4 girls. So it's a lot of that one-on-one dating time. So we really try to make intentional time for each of them and to show them that they mean something, right? And that they have a specific place and role to play in the family. And we see also, especially when a child is going through kind of a challenging time, right? A behavioral, whatever, making that one-on-one time for them can make all the difference. And it can really change their behavior very quickly. And I'll also say that even a simple gesture towards our spouse, right? That can also change the behavior of our children. I can't tell you how my children's faces will light up when my husband reaches out to, just give me a quick hug or something. And then of course they all want in, so it becomes, the family embrace. And I can't blame them for that. Who doesn't want to do that, right? But they see also those signs of affection, basic signs of affection, gestures of affection between my husband and I. And that makes a world of difference for them also and their happiness.
I love that. Well, Erin and Greg, speaking of happiness and fun, Erin and Greg, you have established a tradition of going to family camp. It sounds like that's something you do too, Rob. And that sounds like so much fun. Can you describe what you do?
We actually have been going to Forest Home Family Camp. It's in Southern California for the last 15 years.
I want to go.
And it is delightful because it's minus all the technology. We're outside. We're worshiping. Greg and I teach. The kids come. I always say our 18-year-old has sat through more marriage talks than any other 18-year-old on this planet. And then they go to their activities. We eat meals together. And it's just a delight. Our 18-year-old actually was baptized one of the earlier years at Forest Home Family Camp, and she calls it her second home because that's what it's become to us.
Yeah, it's especially because for us that my parents were counselors there way back when. My dad actually proposed to my mom at family camp when they were counselors. I used to go to hear, when I was a kid, we'd go there for camp. I got to hear my dad speak there. And that's what's so fun for me is that it already was such an important part of my life. Now that it's that way for our kids. And it's such a powerful tradition because what I love is this idea, the illusion is that somehow we can balance work, ministry, and family. And that's such a lie from the evil one, that we look at it as more integration. How do we integrate, our kids into what we're doing? Like if we turn the camera around, you would see our 18-year-old has her earbuds in, dancing, doing her homework. Like we want them to be a part of what we do so that they can see it. They can they can experience it and know this is what mom and dad does. This is why we do it, but we've always been a part of it. And I felt that way growing up. I love that they get to experience that. And then the craziest things happen. There was a forest fire one year that raged through there. There was a flood,
earthquake.
That's the beauty of any kind of camping, whether it's a nice family camp or just being outdoors, that you're inevitably going to go through hard times. And then that's what bonds us. And that becomes a part of our identity. Look what we've been through. Look what we've done together. So it's such a fun experience to have those sort of adventures. We always tell couples, you need to have a daily check-in to where you're just kind of updating on your information. You need to have a weekly date and then an annual adventure. And that's really become our big annual adventure.
Oh, I love that. Well, I'm so glad you brought up your weekly date, because that's where I'm going to take us now. All of you agree that prioritizing weekly dates is really important. Rob, since you have the most children among this group, which is a lot because both the Smalleys and Julia each have 4, I'm going to let you go first. How do you and Amy prioritize time together?
Poorly. That's how we do it. No, piggybacking also with Greg with family camps, I just couldn't recommend that enough. It's not cheap. You have to think about like the cost of a vacation. But if you're on the West Coast, check out Forest Home. If you're in the Midwest, join us this summer for VFM Family Camp up at Cedar Bay or Gull Lake or Northern Pines or Forest Springs or Maranatha, East Coast, Harvey Cedars, Pine Cove, Lake Lure. There are some just amazing Christ-centered family camps around the country. So when it comes to Amy and I prioritizing time, one of the things that I've had to learn is just that we're wired up differently in that regard. It is back to some love language things. Her 2 love languages are gifts and time. Now, for me, I function fine with small bits. So if she and I grab a coffee or take a walk or something like that, my tank gets filled up very quickly. She needs longer time to feel closer to me. And one of the things that really caught us off guard, kind of stepping back macro for a minute, our married years 20 to 25 was a surprisingly difficult season for us. We had really invested together in ministry, in Visionary Family. We were very focused, obviously, on raising our children. So doing ministry together, parenting together, and not investing in each other and in our marriage. And so we began to look at each other and just feel much more cold and much more distant, that the well was running dry. So, right about the 25-year mark, we had to double down on some things. And Amy, you all know that illustration about the canary in the coal mine. Back in the day, the miners, they'd go down, so far into the earth that the oxygen levels could be dangerously low, and they'd bring a bird, they'd bring a canary, and the canary would be super sensitive to the oxygen levels. And so if the canary got sick or died, then they would know, hey, oxygen levels running low, we need to get out of here. So Amy is our canary in the coal mine. Like she feels it before I feel it. We're doing great. We're doing fine. And she's like, no, we're not. Oxygen, needing time. So we have discovered the importance just for us. I know every couple is different. We're going to try to do, 1, 2, 3, 4 date nights if we can in a month. But what we've found has been really critical for us is the overnight. And finding time, whether that's quarterly or as often as we can. Doesn't have to be expensive or fancy or anything like that, but a 24-hour chunk. And we have the benefit now, again, of having older children. Our youngest is 12, so they're able to take care of him and take care of one another. I realize when kids are younger, that's more challenging. But we even, and part of my struggle with my ministry schedule is, I'm doing conferences every other weekend. And so if we say, well, next month, can we get a weekend away? Well, okay, there's those 2 travel weekends for me, and then the kids have sports and whatever. So we actually just went through our 2027 calendar, and we blocked off 4 marriage overnights, because, I got room, I got time. So that was, we're growing, and we're still learning how to really make sure that we're not going back to what we did in that 20 to 25 window, because that was no bueno.
Oh, well, thank you. That's a really good idea to block ahead. Julie, you also mentioned how you and your husband value a night away. You have the youngest children among the group. How do you manage that?
That's right. And honestly, I wish we could do the night away more frequently. We actually rarely do that anymore. It's just gotten impossible, really. But we have decided that it doesn't matter, that we can't get the night away. We're just going to make time with one another, for one another, whatever it takes. And so sometimes that is like the little bits. And unfortunately, Rob, I have to say, both of us, I think my husband and I, we do get filled up in those little bits. So thankfully, we don't need those full nights away, which is a blessing at this stage in our life. Eventually, we might need those longer nights to get filled up. But right now, we'll take whatever we can get. So if that means just breaking away, so we'll also have to schedule out, and we'll schedule maybe 2 hours in our work days, right? And since some days we work from home, so we'll schedule one of those work from home days to take a break and head outdoors while the kids are engaged or busy, whatever. And we get our coffee, 2 blocks away, and just spend a little time to talk. And that really does clear the head, clears the mind, clears the heart. And we can really get a lot accomplished just by doing that. But what we really find also useful is at least at the moment, it's just once yearly that we are able to take a full day, so morning to late afternoon, and just find a place that's very restful, very quiet, peaceful, and we plan. We plan, or we talk, we read, we bring some books, we pray together. We just fill our day with whatever we want to because we have the time. And that is a perfect way to reconnect, reassess the past year, evaluate what's ahead. And it's kind of like, it's really a way for us to recharge after a year has gone by and we're looking forward to the next. And I really do value that time together with my husband, just that one full day. And then we come back also recharged to give more to our children. And our children they perceive that difference because we're just refueled and ready to give more, to love more, and to love one another better.
Oh, I love that. Now, Greg and Erin, you're almost empty nesters, and you have a strategy to use on your dates for conversation. Because sometimes it's like you get there and you're like, well, what do we say? Can you share what you do? You have some great resources.
Yeah, we recognize that, like Rob and Julie are talking about, that we need to get away. We need to have some alone time. Within that, I think part of what Erin and I started realizing is that those dates, whatever they look like, such a great opportunity to update your knowledge. We're always changing. That's about the only thing that Erin and I can guarantee couples. You're going to change. Mm-hmm. I mean, who Erin is today, very different than when we got married. I wrote an article one time called the 4 women that I've been married to, only Erin. And because who she is, who she was in her 20s, different than her 30s, different than in her 40s. And now different than in her 30s again. And so we just believe so deeply in this idea that one lifetime isn't long enough to get to know each other because we're always changing. So we need to stay current. We need to pursue. We love the word rediscover. Remember the old rock group, Journey? They had they have a great song that talks about that. I get the joy of rediscovering you. In that's what we try to do within our dates. We want to have fun. We want to do those kinds of things, but we want to make sure that we're spending some time rediscovering each other.
And so we really utilize conversation starters.
Yeah.
And people will be like, really? But we will download them and just begin asking a few questions. It's like primes the pump. And then before we know it, we're warmed up and the conversation is flowing. And it just gives us a different topic and a different avenue to go down. So there's specific questions that we ask each other regularly. How are you feeling? How are things with the kids? How are with greatest stressor right now? What's God teaching you? But then these kind of take us off that pathway to some new, exciting conversation.
Yeah.
And thoroughly enjoy that.
Oh, well, you had mentioned that you actually keep a list on your phone, and I asked for it. And you were kind enough to send it to me. Yeah. So it really helpful because we're empty nesters ourselves. So sometimes it's good to have something that kind of a new opportunity, a new something to talk about.
Yeah, I think what scares me is someday if we ever woke up and just kind of went, who are you? Like you're nothing more than a roommate to me. Because I know, we're committed. We have a covenant. Like we take our marriage seriously. Like Rob was talking about, we go to counselors. Like we do all that. But there's just something about going, man, I don't want there ever to be a moment to where I feel like you're just like, we just don't know each other and we're strangers. And because that's the most lonely feeling that I could imagine. And so we have to work at that. Like Julia is talking about, like that's not going to accidentally happen. You've got to do those intentional things. So that is one thing that we do keep those conversation starters. We use them. We've answered them 50 times. And I'm telling you, every time it's the same question, it's going to be a different answer. That's what's so cool.
Yeah. Well, and there was quite a list too. It wasn't just one or two. There's some really good resources. And I think we have some of those at our Marriage Week website too. So viewers, take note. You all mentioned several other habits you hope to pass down to your kids. Each of you talked about the importance of attending church together as a family. Rob, I know you said you had some youth sports were pretty intense in your family. How did your family navigate that? Because that can be a real tough juxtaposition.
Yeah, the sports thing right now for most families, especially Christian families, is becoming increasingly difficult. Let's say you're in a situation where you have a 5-year-old who clearly is a gifted soccer player. Gifted. If that 5-year-old is not on the platinum gold U 5U extreme team, see the problem, if he's not in that team, the 7U scouts are not going to see him. He's just going to miss getting on 7U gold and then 9U black. And if you're not in that stream, your child could miss out on the pinnacle of all of human existence, which would be high school varsity athletics. And let us not even speak of college sports right now.
I've been there.
So listen, and I'm speaking as parents of athletes. I've had 2 of my kids play college sports. Okay, we're in basketball season right now. I love sports. I think sports are great. But here's what's happening, and we're working with families continually on this. You're signing up for these, instead of just doing park district, which are typically going to be Saturdays and weeknights. Your local park district's usually not doing stuff on Sundays. So by doing these tournament and travel teams too soon, A, the financial impact, B, the schedule impact, C, the Sunday impact. But we've got families now that every time there's a sports church conflict, okay, they choose the sport. Yeah. And then they do a little speech on the way to the Sunday morning soccer thing. They'll say, hey, just because we're not going to church today, doesn't mean church isn't important and da-da-da-da. Okay. If every time you choose the sport over the church, then you're telling your child what's most important to you. Those are your values. And I'm not saying it's a sin to miss church. I'm not saying it's a sin to play sports on Sunday. That's not my point. I'm saying that if every time there's a sports church conflict in your family, you choose the sport, you're teaching your child what matters to you more. And then that creates a very significant heart lesson and spiritual lesson, and breaks us out of this natural rhythm that God has called us to. Isaiah chapter 58, that we should call the Sabbath our delight. Exodus 20, 6 days you shall labor, right? 1 day, keep the Sabbath holy. So it's a really serious issue for parents. Very practically, what we encourage folks to do is really focus on those park district sports as long as you can through 6th grade, 7th grade. And then if you've got a kid who absolutely loves the sport, you want to help prep them for high school. My son, real quick, I know I'm taking too long in this. My son, as he was going through baseball, that 8th grade, 9th grade, travel time, he'd try out for a team and he'd say, I'd love to be on your team, but I just can't play Sundays. Is that okay? Every team said, sure, no problem. We want you on the team. We won't expect you on Sundays. So there's all sorts of things that you can do to elevate the priority of worshiping together as a family.
I love that. Well, Julia, your girls aren't old enough for you to experience that tension yet, but you and Francis very intentionally pray together. Can you share what's working for you with your littles?
Yes, absolutely. Fortunately, we're not in that season yet, but family daily prayer that is daily and consistent is so important. And that's what we want to leave with our children. And so every night before bedtime, that's typically the best time to break open the Bible and just read a story from the Bible. That is, of course, age appropriate, so it's a Bible that has a great kind of story tale, way about it in teaching about the scriptures. And they love these stories. And so that is the primary, the way that we pray together. And then we say, what kind of lesson can we draw from that? And then we also pray liturgically as Catholics, we pray with the seasons. And so, of course, we have Lent very close upon us. And so we're going to set out a sacrifice jar and we'll put our little, the beans, the dried beans, of course, that symbolize the sacrifice has been made or something has been offered up or some good deed has been done. And then, of course, on Easter, they change into jelly beans. There's lots of variations on a theme. But in any case, these are the ways that we're also trying to teach through the seasons and ensure that a prayer life is developed. But I think that the key is consistency and just spending a little time with the Lord each and every day and thanking him for all of his goodness. That's key for us right now.
Oh, I love that. Well, Greg and Erin, you've got what you call the everyday sacred moments that you really emphasize. You had greetings, farewells. Can you share? I really liked what you had to say there. Can you share a little bit about your sacred moments together?
Yeah, because we've got all these moments during the day. We're busy. We've got a whole lot going on. But what Erin and I began to realize is that there are some moments throughout the day that we would have a high connection potential. Mm-hmm. For example, just as we're getting ready to leave in the morning, how we say goodbye to each other, that's going to make a big difference. Like it's a moment that we can quickly connect. We can pray for each other for the day. Mm-hmm. And so we try to take advantage of that. And so we're always looking for what are these moments in our life, in our day that have a high connection potential to make sure that we lean in to those.
Yeah, when someone comes back home and you've been in separate locations, someone comes home and taking time just to set whatever you're doing down and greeting each other. It's simple. It takes 2 seconds to greet each other. I always say greet each other with a holy kiss, and it influences how the rest of the evening is going to go. But as well, when we go to bed at night and praying together and, expressing appreciation and gratitude, snuggling, all of it. It's just such an opportunity for connection.
Yeah. So we always encourage couples, think about your day and think about what are some of those moments. Maybe it's eating dinner together. Maybe it's going grocery store shopping, which we both hate, but we love to do it together.
Yeah.
And it's just looking for what are these regular moments that we can seize, we can take advantage of. They take just moments. And because in one of them, I remember I was at a dinner party as a very young husband. I was talking to this guy. He'd been married over 50 years. I just said, all right, man, give me your best tip. What is it? And he said, I never let my wife leave our home without complimenting her because I don't want the first compliment that she hears to come from another man.
Aww.
And I've loved that. And I want that for Erin. I want that. I have 3 daughters and a son, but I want them to hear that so much from me that there's not that desperate, please, someone say something, affirm me in some way.
Right.
Not, I mean, Erin is very healthy as an individual, so even if I wasn't doing that, she'd be good. But again, I want her to hear that stuff from me, and that's why saying goodbye in the morning is such a cool one. I'm now getting up very early, long before she's even awake. But we will have a phone call. She'll get on her exercise bike and she'll call me and we have a quick little conversation. So it's just looking for what in your life happens on a regular basis that has a high connection value and take advantage of that.
Yeah, and the blast off and re-entry. I heard it described that way once, just when somebody's coming to recognize it's so easy to be busy on your something, but to make an effort. And you remind us of this. So, gosh, Erin and Greg, Rob, Julia, you've given us so much encouragement and ideas to try. Thank you all so much for being here.
Thank you. And I want Rob's I want his credit card number because I have to go out and buy birthing gifts now for my wife.
It's a new budget line, my friend. It's a new budget line.
Right. Get them.
Well, it was such a pleasure talking with each one of you. Viewers, thank you for joining us for National Marriage Week. Don't forget to tune in tomorrow and find answers to your questions at marriageweek.org.